Oh, you definitely need that variety.
So by that, Williamson's in his application.
So we're gonna postpone that one. We're just gonna postpone our vote on the one spot.
We're just gonna vote on one. We'll just go out and re-advertise. Open spot.
Get ready to go up.
You'll have to go out and do some more beating the bushes. I got at least got Wayne Burgess. Eddie called, he said he was ready.
6:30 maybe. But still.
Oh, boy.
But my phone is today. No,
He's not gonna be there.
Right, yeah, no, he's definitely not gonna be
for that?
$24. I'm a member.
It just, he didn't realize it was a meeting night. That was what it was called. That was just weird.
Yeah.
Okay, you're on the books.
Right.
Work session is started.
All right, let's roll.
And Mr. Pope, go ahead and get started.
All right, so first up, I just wanted to give council a summary of the wait list to make sure we've accurately captured what we've discussed over the winter. Propose some opening times. The deadline for business licenses for rentals with the grace period is actually today. So it only happened about an hour and a half ago to cut off for rental license renewals. That said, Stacy and her team have renewed already approximately 1,036 rentals with 968 ISTRs. So there won't be any room in the wait list this year, but we are still interested in getting the wait list going. And so we propose to open phase 1 on August 1st. Hold that open for a 30-day application period. It's open to anyone who owned property on February 7th, 2023. So we'll advertise this ahead of time, and you will have 30 days in August if you owned your property on February 7th, 2023 to apply for an ISTR waitlist spot. And we're going to ask you to provide your deed or date of acquisition, and we'll proof check that with the county. And then we will order how many ever applicants we get. We'll put them in order of longest awning to shortest awning by acquisition date. And those folks will be phase 1. We'll open phase 2 on September 1st. That'll be first come, first served to anyone who owns property on Folly Beach at the time they apply. But no one in phase 2 will be eligible for a license until all entrants into phase 1 have been offered a license. If we only get a handful of folks in phase 1, that'll be a shorter wait. If we get several hundred folks in phase 1, that'll be a longer wait. And so that's our plan for a 2-phase wait list starting August 31st. First phase awarded by seniority in terms of ownership. Second phase, first come, first serve.
And there is plenty of room on the wait list. It's just they're not going to be issuing any ISTR licenses because of you're over the cap. You said there wasn't any room. There wasn't any room on the wait list. Plenty of room on the wait list right now.
Anyone can get on the wait list if you meet the criteria, but there aren't any licenses scheduled to be awarded, barring some extraordinary circumstance for this year. So there are a few things at the end of the memo here. We have to have some rules for the wait list, and there are a few things to highlight. What can cause you to come off the wait list if you register and you get on it? If we find anyone renting a property without a license while they're on the wait list, they will be removed from the wait list. If you sell the property, that property's spot on the wait list, so you can't register your property on the wait list and then sell it to someone and they maintain your spot. If you sell it, the new owner starts at the bottom, and once you are notified, you have 60 days to apply. It's going to take a long time for these licenses to become available, so we anticipate that by the time we get around to number 89 on phase 2, that person may not be interested in the license. They may have sold the property, that sort of thing. But if your situation has changed and you don't want to rent, you have 60 days to tell us, and if you don't respond in 60 days and take it, we're going to bump you off the list and move on to the next person. It's only 1 entry per owner, so you cannot sign up multiple properties at the same time. But I do want to note that all owners are eligible to apply. You only get one license from the wait list, but if you already have a license in the world, that's not against you. So if you own 10 properties, you can have one entry on the wait list, even if you have another licensed property right now. But you're only ever gonna get one license off the list.
So it's not a reapply every year thing, this is
No.
it's a set, and if you go on, say, if you're on the wait list, say you're in phase one, will phase one be opened up again? Or is it just that 30 days, like say next year, somebody that's owned their house for 20 years wants to jump on, they would just be in phase two then?
It'll be in phase two. I mean, we're gonna announce this, starting today. We're announcing this at public meetings. We'll put it on Facebook. We can put it in the Sandspur. We can use every method we have to communicate with people. But after that 30-day, barring action from council, that 30-day window is the chance to get on phase one. So, we'll keep you guys posted as we, Wes has already got some test applications in, and we'll refine the application procedures and continue to test it so it doesn't crash on day one, and we'll keep you guys posted.
Okay. He give you plenty of time. So I looked at where you normally sit and didn't see, I thought you spelled out on us.
Hang on, move around today. Hello, everyone. I am here today to report back on the planning commission meeting that was held on May 6th. And they had 8 or 9 ordinances in front of them. I'm gonna go through them one by one with their, explaining what the ordinance would do and then with their recommendation. The first one, 007, was to allow protected trees to be removed in 2-family districts, the same way that it's allowed right now in single-family districts. This is, there's about 80 RTF properties on the island right here near Center Street. And I believe that this was an oversight. The word meant to say this in here initially. I've gone back and I've looked at council meetings previously, that they meant to allow removal of a tree in the footprint of a home for residential homes. It says just single family, so this proposal would add RTF also. The planning commission did not vote to recommend it. They were torn and did not recommend this as an ordinance. They would like to look at the entire tree ordinance at a future hearing and delve into that with some suggestions.
You want discussion as we go, or you want to wait till the end?
If you got a question, now's the time to ask it.
I just wonder if we should vote on it and still kick it back for further discussion with the planning board. Is there a reason not to pass this now, or what happens if we don't? What happens if we do?
If you don't, then it's as it, it's treating it as is. And this has not actually come up since I've been here. This is something that a local architect pointed out to me. Hey, what about 2-family? They're not listed here. And so that's what I was trying to correct. So, I mean, it's up to y'all. If you want to do this, you still could, or just wait on a bigger picture look at.
How soon do you think you're gonna act on that?
The next meeting we would have would be June, would be the earliest we get in. So the earliest would be June, possibly longer.
We'd have to bring it up and kick it down to y'all, wouldn't we? We'd have to bring up the tree ordinance and remand it to planning
You
commission.
just have to make a motion or remand back to planning to review the tree ordinance.
So when we shoot this down, then say, let's send the whole tree ordinance back to them?
Just remand it back to them, you then shoot it down. They just come
Remand this back to them and have a look at the entire tree ordinance, and then they can look at all of it. and
So when
make
you come back, it's
recommendations.
all,
Gotcha.
Okay. All right, the next 3, I'm gonna kind of go over together because they all interact, and if you vote one way on one, you're probably gonna vote a corresponding way on another one. So 8, 9, and 10. 8 would define impervious material. We currently do not define this. We define impervious, but we do not define pervious in our code. So this is material type of service that allows water to pass through. It's pretty straightforward, and it gives Eric and I flexibility when people submit something, because right now that's what we do, we ask for specs. And you say this is pervious, prove it to me, and this just kind of enshrines that authority. Planning Commission voted to recommend this one to council. And then 9 is the opposite. 9 is, let me go back to 8. 8 would specifically add gravel to the list of pervious. And then in 9, gravel is taken out of impervious. So those are the two to watch when you're voting. I want to vote one way or the other. The commission voted to recommend 9 to y'all. And then 10 also deals with pervious materials, and it's really 2 issues here. So if there's something that you want to break this up perhaps and vote on one or the other. The first one is adding commercial to the requirement for pervious driveways. Right now, it's just driveways and parking areas in residential areas. Then second would be all at-grade improvements, so sidewalks, pool decking, that type of thing, requiring those to be pervious also. Right now, it's just the driveways, right? So this would expand it to other, these other materials. And I will say, just from what we see, most people, when they get a contractor out there to do their driveway, they go ahead and do the sidewalk, and they go ahead and do the pool decking of all the same materials. They're already majority doing this, I would say, but there still are a couple of instances when they're not.
So right now, that would include pavers.
Pavers would be a material that you could use.
That's what I'm
for-
saying, it would include pavers.
Yeah, pavers, pervious concrete.
There's 2 sizes of the gravel standard though, right?
Lots of sizes. We have,
The ones that are considered pervious though were by definition 2 different, they're not a slag, it's a.
7, 8, 9, and 57 are the industry standard for drainage requirements. If you look at the explanations, what can you use these types of gravel for, those 2 specifically list drainage.
When we take gravel off of that list, are we specifying those grades in the? Yeah.
Yes. In practice, 7, 8, 9, and 57.
So that's codified then?
We're not codified. I mean, we can be, but right now it's here. Okay, so that's all the pervious
So
ones.
on those, are you ready for comments on those 3
Yes, 10 was also recommended to the council.
and 10? So
8, 9, 10.
my concerns are with gravel in particular, and I've shared it with some folks, but let's just hypothetically, someone starts with a permitted 15-foot driveway, and the gravel spreads, and now it becomes a 20-plus foot driveway, and it's hard to tell where the protected 15-foot driveway is, and so we end up losing public parking. Or someone covers their entire permitted driveway and also improves the public right-of-way with the same gravel. Now the entire property front is covered with gravel, making it impossible to see what is the protected driveway and what is not the protected driveway, and we lose public parking. Or an ISTR goes and gravels the entire front yard and makes parking for 10-plus vehicles. The rental home now becomes a meeting place for large groups, large gatherings, and calls to public safety, and our neighbors, their lives are impacted to the negative. These things are not what will happen, but these are things that have already happened, even though gravel is defined as impervious. And you can drive throughout this island and see where those exact instances have occurred. You know, what happens if we change it to pervious? Does that mean we want more gravel and less grassy lawns and more gardens? Do we want more parking lots made of gravel? Do we want Folly to look like a community of homes, of residents, like we talked about in the ISTR discussions? Or do we want it to look like high-capacity parking lots at residents? The list also specifies, you said 7, 8, and 9, the number 57, but who follows up to make sure it is not covered by another size? Are we expecting you or Eric to run around and make sure that 57 gravel stays 57 and isn't covered with something else? Is that reasonable for us to expect staff to do? to make sure that permeable remains permeable. Gravel moves when it migrates on its own and you put it next to the road. It becomes a detriment to traffic as people swerve to try to avoid gravel that is spilled out. It's an obstacle to pedestrians who try to avoid walking on it. And it's a public safety hazard to cyclists as it can grab their tires or tumble them. So leaving it as impervious doesn't mean that you can't use it. It just means it counts towards your 35% of lot coverage. And I think it would be a poor decision on our part to go ahead and change it from impervious to pervious. I think gravel should have some limitations. So, those are my comments.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Right now? Okay.
I tend to agree with Bill on that. The pool decking is another concern. What do you see people using for pool decking if they can't use, the normal, I mean, because normally around the pool you have concrete, you don't want to walk on gravel if you're in the pool and you have bare feet. It's on people's private property. So as far as like the flooding concern and all that stuff, it's not gonna spill over into, other places. I'm not as concerned about that. It would just apply to lot coverage. Is that the big thing that we're
Right
getting
now,
rid
I see
of?
a lot of permeable pavers around pools, that's what people are using.
That's why I asked if
So-
you could use pavers, it's permeable.
That is an option, and that would count. What's the question?
I think that you're severely limiting what people are allowed to do for pool decking if you do this for the payoff isn't as big for us for pool decking. It's not like driveways and right-of-ways that are significant, they're there to significantly improve drainage and help, so their flooding doesn't become someone else's problem. Pool decking's different, it's not gonna become someone else's problem, it's their problem, but we're severely limiting what they're doing for no gain. We're not gaining anything from it.
Well,
To
less
take off-
impervious surfaces, hopefully alleviating the flooding problem. I mean, every drop counts, kind of.
I hear you, I don't see the Bill says the juice ain't worth the squeeze.
To take off on what DJ said, if someone builds a house that covers 35% of their space, they're done, and everything they have to do becomes permeable. But if you have a house that covers 10% of your space, this would require them, it would disallow them from having a concrete pad, like if they wanted a patio that was 10 by 10, they would have to go a permeable deck, even though they're only covering about half of what the neighbor is with their own home. And it doesn't seem fair. It seems like the fairest way to do it is to tell everybody, you get 35% that you can cover, and you can't cover anything more than 35. And if you use 35% up for your home, you're done, and everything else must be permeable. But if you're only covering 10% of your lot, you should have some flexibility to use something impermeable, to go ahead and build a deck, or build a sidewalk, or build a decking around your pool. It just seems a question of fairness. Is it fair to hold people to a higher standard when they haven't even filled up their 35%?
Aren't there enough alternatives that are pervious? I mean, it doesn't seem like we're limited to gravel and
Pervious
pavers.
pavers, pervious concrete, pervious asphalt, there are grass, I was researching today, grass pavers, which are kind of cool looking, so there are options.
Do you have any idea of how much those alternatives add to the cost of the construction?
So I called around to a local concrete company and asked regular concrete versus pervious concrete. And regular concrete, this is Hardyville, a company in Hardyville, $175 a yard for regular. And the pervious starts at $185 a yard. It goes up to $225, that's depending on the strength of the PSI of material. So for concrete, that is the one difference in numbers. The rest of them, depends on the contractor, depends on what paver you choose. There's a lot of variety, but it will be more expensive.
Yeah, but not like significantly more, I guess.
For concrete, it's not significant.
Yeah, I would say, because even impervious concrete, the price goes up when you increase the strength of the concrete.
Right.
It just sounded like maybe the pervious one went up, but the impervious one didn't, but they both escalate as you make the difference in the strength.
I just see this as a bigger part of the water issues that we're experiencing in Allen. Just being proactive, I think it's a good first step.
That it seems like a even better step to say if you have 35%, you have 35%, you have 35%. Keep everybody fair.
Well,
You're
let's
punishing
move-
people that build a smaller house. You know, like Bill said, that's kind of.
Let's move on, y'all can discuss this when
Sure.
it comes up shortly.
Hey, we got plenty of time.
Yeah, you got all night. You on number 11?
Number 11. This ordinance would define single ownership for purposes of our merger ordinance. So if someone owns a piece of property in their name on the beach, and right next to it, they own a piece of property under the name of an LLC, this shows that, or this defies that those people, if we know that they're the same person, they're considered the same person, even if the name on the deed doesn't match. The planning commission had two recommendations for this. One, to add trust to this list, so it says if individually named beneficiaries, LLC shareholders, they would add trust to that list. And then the second thing was, on line 4, at the end of the line, if one or both of these lots. So there's several places where they talk about, the ordinance envisions the lots that have been put together, and they call them one or more. In this one instance, we say if one or both. And theoretically, there could be 3 lots, there would be really teeny lots, but the 3 lots that are merged. And so this would cover that case, refer to one or more. And, yeah, so that was their recommendations, and they voted to recommend to council. Number 12, so we have the Marsh Island Residential District that was created several years ago. And pieces of property have been put into this district. We rezoned Long Island. And in that definition, short-term rentals are not allowed, but we did not put it in the table of uses. And so this adds Marsh Island Residential to the table of uses. I pretty much copied what's allowed in single-family residential, taking out the short-term rentals since they are disallowed in this district. And maybe 1 or 2 things, I didn't add in daycare, family daycare, or group daycare homes. And we're talking an island with no access. I don't think anybody's gonna be using it that way. But community center, park, docks, those are the uses that would be allowed in Marsh Island Residential. And the planning commission voted to recommend that to council for adoption. Number 13 is purely technical. It's adding the Center Street overlay and the Marsh Island Residential that I was just talking about to a table of base zoning districts that we have in Folly. And that was recommended unanimously. And then 14 would change the time that it's required to, or the time allowed for a BZA appeal to the circuit court. And this is to match state law. So state law says within 30 days of the decision being mailed, and we had it at 30 days after the decision is made. So that's the change, and the recommendation that this is, obviously needs to have the word within in this. So it should read or within 30 days after the decision of the EPA is mailed. And that was their recommendation. Anybody else?
Plastic bags, quick.
Yeah, sir. So we have a few minutes, so
Just real fast.
just to reference something else that's coming up tonight, we have an ordinance, a plastic bag related ordinance, and
Right here. 77.
so on page 77, and that plastic bag ordinance would amend our current rules to address thick plastic bags. You may have seen after the plastic bag legislation kind of went around Charleston County, Mount Pleasant, Charleston County, Town of James Island, City of Charleston, Town of James Island, people switched to the thick plastic bags. And so fast forward a few years, and now our surrounding jurisdictions have all updated their ordinances to include those thick gauge plastic bags as being prohibited items. And also, they've included in their ordinances language about plastic cutlery. It doesn't ban or prohibit plastic cutlery, but it does say that if you offer it, it needs to be upon request or in a self-serve, rather than automatically putting it into things. In theory, that will reduce the number of plastic cutlery pieces found on the beach. And we did get one report today with a aquarium count. I don't know if you guys saw that in your email. Had a citizen who summed up the data from the aquarium litter sweeps and broke down the litter, and surprisingly, plastic cutlery was one of the number one sources of litter on the beach. So this ordinance mirrors what has been passed. I know the town of James Island, the city of Charleston, and the town of Mount Pleasant passed it. I think it's still pending in Charleston County. So that's on the agenda for later tonight too.
With that, you got